All right, well, let's stay with those raids then. Joining me in studio tonight to discuss this further, Dr. Tanya Zak, an urban planner and senior visiting researcher at the School of Architecture and Planning at Wits University, Dr. Vusi Sibanda from the African Diaspora, and Tadisi Yamani from the Ethiopian Community Association of South Africa. Let me thank you all for your time tonight. I wonder perhaps just reflections on what the Minister had to say following his visit to the city centre today. Tanya?
I'm very concerned that this is being seen as a Home Affairs problem, Cathy. It is a state problem, and the state problem is around unemployment and the huge economic crisis we have in this country. The area in which Minister Chele is standing at the moment and reporting from is an area of major economic activity and a major bonus and a major boon to the inner city of Johannesburg. And this violence in that space and the police activity is disturbing a very important trade in the inner city, a trade that is worth over 10 billion rand a year.
All right, we're going to get into the details then of that trade and some of the research that you've done. Vusi, I saw you shaking your head all throughout as the Minister was speaking. Why?
What is concerning me is that it's a foregone conclusion that the people that are trading in that area are undocumented, are migrants, when we've got a lot of people that are probably documented. And I'm shaking my head because what is so saddening is at this stage, I think we've got approximately 1,200, that's about 1,200 people that have been, taken, into police custody. And a lot of some of those people are carrying documents, either permits or asylum documents, and they are taken in and told that, they'll only be released once Home Affairs has gone there to verify their documentation. But, I mean, I'm not sure, maybe there are certain laws that we have missed, because our understanding is basically that, you must carry your documents wherever you're going so that you can easily be identified. But when you get a situation, if Home Affairs needs to verify documents, I'm assuming that they would have to go there when they arrest people, verify the documents on the spot. But when they round up people, arrest them for merely being a migrant, irrespective of the fact that you're carrying your documentation, I think that's very, very sad. So my biggest problem is those statements to me, unfortunately, they don't sound right. They sound very, very wrong and xenophobic in a way.
All right. Tadis, what's your response? How do you interpret what the Minister is saying?
My interpretation to the Minister's statement is that very disturbing, and then they are setting bad precedent to the lawless people who might want this other advantage and a green light to attack the foreign nationals just merely because someone out there declared them undocumented while we are legally recognized immigrant here. Like Dr. Vusi said, now there are about 1,200 individuals in a police cell right now. Most of them, I can assure you, they are carrying a proper documentation. I had a chance to speak to most of them. Then they told me they produced their documents to the police officials there, but they were simply told that the Home Affairs must come and verify this thing. When we look at the history, in our history, people were victimized merely because they didn't have proper documentation. Like here, even in South Africa, our brothers in apartheid time, they were not allowed to be issued proper documentation like their white counterpart. They used to be given dompas. Now we're seeing, we're witnessing that's happening to other fellow human beings. That should be unacceptable. We should condemn this thing in a strong term.
Of course, there seem to be two issues at play here. One, of course, borders on, the xenophobic sentiment sometimes that seems to be attached when referencing many of those informal traders in the Joburg CBD. But Dr. Tanya, the one thing we've had from the multiple officials we've spoken to last week and this week, whether it was the Commissioner for Police in Gauteng, last night we had the Minister of Small Business who also went to the CBD. All of them are saying that the majority of traders who are doing business in the city centre simply don't have the papers to prove that they're here legally. And so they believe that this matter needs to be resolved primarily from that angle before we then get into what the issues around trading may be, which centers around counterfeit goods. What's your impression of that? What's your take on that?
We need to deal with our laws and our policies around the informal sector in South Africa in a much more progressive way. Those laws are extremely restrictive. We're not enabling small business. We're not enabling the informal sector effectively. That, aside from the issues around foreign migrants who, in addition, are treated unfairly on the streets and often against the law. The Constitutional Court has upheld the rights of foreign migrants to trade in these spaces and in the inner city. But I think that we cannot separate that from the reality on the street, which is that the trade that is happening on the street, Cathy, is a cross-border trade. It is a trade that is serving sub-Saharan Africa. What is happening in these few city blocks, we counted 3,000 shops in 53 city blocks. That is a very small part of the CBD. And combined, those shops are trading to Zambia, Zimbabwe, Mozambique. Traders are coming across the border on a daily basis to buy goods within that space. This is a massive trade. It is Johannesburg's port to sub-Saharan Africa. I don't think we can set that aside and merely make this an issue of foreign migrants and a home affairs issue.
And when you talk about, sorry to interject there, when you talk about the enormity of the trade, you've even compared it to how much the city centre makes versus Sandton City, the turnover that a shopping mall like that would generate, being on the richest square mile in Africa, as we've been told.
Exactly. So twice, you know, the shoppers, only the shoppers coming from across the border, the Johannesburg Inner City Partnership undertook a study in 2017, and only the shoppers coming across the border, that excludes local shoppers, are spending over 10 billion rand a year in that space. That is twice the annual turnover of Sandton City Shopping Centre, the biggest mall in Africa. This is an important economic hub in the inner city. We need to be treating it, we need to be rolling out the red carpet for shoppers in the space, rather than engaging there with the fiercest force of law and the fiercest force we have.
What then for the sentiment, again, part of which was shared on this show last night, that many of these traders are successful because they don't play by the rules, that they undercut some of the rules, which is why you'll find that small business, at least that is started by South Africans, just fails because they're trying to comply, whereas many of those who are operating don't comply?
I think the problem that we have is there's a lot of, assumptions and a lot of people, coming up with theories that are not tested to say, okay, these shops are successful because, they are not paying taxes, and they are successful because they are trading in, illicit products. And the truth of the matter is, we should actually, I think when we spoke with the small Minister for Small Business sometime last year, we spoke about the resilience that these, the bulk of these, migrant, people that have when it comes to businesses, when they are looted and they still manage to stand up and rebuild because, they've seen, the hardest part probably of life. So what is basically happening here is we are seeing a situation where instead of basically saying we can learn something, from the resilience, from how these people are doing. I mean, at the beginning of this year, when we met with the Premier, we even offered to say, let us have migrants partnering with South Africans so that we've got skills transfer, across pollination, so that people can learn whilst they are working together to see what makes these people successful. But all what we are hearing now is just a situation where we get fingers saying, no, yes, they are successful because they are not paying taxes, because they are illegal.
How does all of this impact your ability to do business, number one? And I wonder if it has any bearing on the kind of relationships that you also have with your clients who, as we heard, the bulk of them would be from the region, but also locals in South Africa.
Yeah, most of our clients are coming from the southern African countries, from SADC countries. They came primarily because they find bargain in our business area, because our goods are cheaper. We save from our lifestyle. We manage to keep our price low compared to the other business operating places in a CBD, in a Johannesburg market areas. So now, when these trades are occurring and we're being tainted as illegal and non-compliant immigrants, surely it's going to affect our business. And then those theories coming from the officials must be challenged, because it's not good for our business, for black business in general. What we see is that is deliberate destruction of black business. Not just foreign nationals. It seems for me now, at this stage, it seems for me now, it's a taboo for an immigrant to own a business. What's wrong with it?
All right.
Yes.
After the break, I want us to explore some of the options. I'll give you a moment then to also get your word in, Dr. Tanya. We're going to take a short break. You're live on News at Prime. The conversation continues after this. Do stay with us.